So if you're watching this very belated but still very excited to cover video on World of Final Fantasy Maxima, the DLC that came with WoFF, the beautiful, glorious, kawaii, squee little game that it was, I mostly want to cover what was at the secret ending of this Maxima title because it was so juicy, and it started with Alwyn and then went into what I had legit been raving about, being the coolest WoFF side story, like a hidden little story that I would love to be explored. I talked about it a lot, I imagined they'd do a prequel with it, but by the looks of it, this is what the sequel story is going to be. So I'm talking WoFF 2, baby. Not the little mellow Android title thingy, a legit, faithfully done sequel, just like the original, and it could be happening. Because we recently heard from director Chiba that he was ready to go with a WoFF 2, that the story had already been completely written, his team was ready, he was ready, they were just waiting for Square Enix to give them the green light. So after hearing that and seeing what was in the secret ending, it became so obvious that he had teed up his sequel story, and the fact that it was in exactly the ballpark of lore that I had been pointing at wanting to happen, and I was like, there was definitely a dank story there. I am pleasantly surprised. I was pleasantly surprised with all of WoFF Maxima. It was worth the time, basically. The time, sweat, and tears that that September DLC made me relentlessly pour in. Before I lose my shit, please tell me I'm not back at the start. Please. Why would they add this as a feature? That's not what Ultimate Dungeon's supposed to do! They're not supposed to be ultimate because they're ultimately unfair! On the plus side, damage is increased on this floor. Yeah! I mean, it was savage. So a little mini review of what the Maxima DLC was before I get into the story part. It was a DLC that I think for what it cost and the limited resource that the team themselves admit that they had to pour into it, I thought it was definitely a worthwhile addition that I enjoyed playing, but would I recommend it to most? I would say no. No, or at least no, unless you did enjoy the base game, and I mean enjoy everything about it. The world, the universe, the base mechanics, the quirky, unique, turn-based, wibbly-wobbly stack combat system like I did. If you didn't, you might want to pass, because while I didn't mind that it took me a savage 30 hours, I'm not kidding, 30 hours of leveling and grinding through arenas and dungeons, get my kinda sucky stacks stronger in a position to even do the DLC, just to then traverse through a, oh my god, I'm not even gonna call it a dungeon. I'm going to call it Fiendish Malevolence. 4 Fiendish to be exact, because director Chiba and his team made us crawl tooth and nail through region after region, fighting at an encounter rate that is as frequent as the word darkness is used in Kingdom Hearts games. And darker still is we have to do it with no save points and no ways to replenish health or mana, so you had best believe you had saved most of your inventory, your potions, your Phoenix Dunes, your elixirs from the previous 60 hours of game that I had. Still not devilish enough, how about that we also had to guess our way through these places on nothing but instinct, and if you chose the wrong direction, we had to go straight back to the start. Yeah, I'm getting PTSD just remembering it, but in case they do make it, I think this is what the director saw. In case they do make it through the region and guess the routes correctly, let's stick a janky boss at the end of each world and give them wildly different abilities, just to test about every aspect of your totally unprepared stacks, including double death. Double instant wiping death, yes. 15 hours of sheer mania-inducing trials later, you done? Good. Now do all 4 of them, in one go, with Garland at the helm. Done with that? Now fly around an overworld map searching for completely invisible pinpoint locations based on vague clues at best with an airship that I can't seem to control. Oh, this is gonna take a while. Ooh, ooh. Go back. Fat me. Turn. How do I? Where was it? Gay. God, come on. Oh my god, Yep, I think this is going to break me. No. Wait, you're going to love this one. Be forced to solve rage-inducing stack weight requirements, and ones based on specific elements, some of which will be so hard to achieve, quotas so steep that it will either A, force the player out into the world hunting super rare mirages like it did me, or B, just into complete submission. This game's driving me crazy! Then you'll get battered around by another X9 Immortal Dragon nightmare of a fight before then facing the main one, Diabolos. Yes, you'll face him again, but this time so juiced up that it takes just about the rest of your entire willpower, as well as whatever morsels of scraps you might by some miracle have left in your miserable looking inventory bags. Multiple wipes later for me. At 20 minutes on average a pop, I finally scrapped tooth and nail to get Diabolos low enough to be able to dig out an overpowered trick of my own. Please don't kill me, please don't die, please don't die, not now, not now. Yes! Oh my god! He'll only keep casting whirlwinds, actually. He's doomed! Oh, yes! Yes! Smite him, oh mighty smiter! This is gonna be a 80k. We've done it, right? 80k, come on. Yes! Oh! 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 Come on! As you can see, the reaction of a maddened peasant who had been through some shit. What this DLC demanded us to do. Honestly, if it had been any other game, I would have long told it to go stuff it. Yet because it's World of Final Fantasy, it can. Its charm allows it. The joyful chibbiness means that such utterly ridiculous demands are met by me with childlike commitment and enthusiasm, with its wave after wave of cute little XP blobules that you get to farm. You know, your little Final Fantasy guys in your stack now, even though having them now makes your stack completely useless. Much humour, such Zack and Sarah cuteness, and from a guy who is still level 1 fishing in FF15, I actually ended up binging the little Noctis fishing game. So just like classic WoFF, it's so shamelessly fun, and it's got its own well-honoured sense of humour and style mixed throughout that I enjoyed what frankly should have been unenjoyable. And yes, that included the pride-crushing rounds with Selphie and the two other people who once made me feel safe and important in this world. They turn on you because you also get to fight the supreme A-World god herself, Enna Crow, who hurts exactly as much as you would expect a 2 billion ton punch of Alexander to hurt. But psych! You gotta kill them a minimum of 9 times as Tama uses the game's emotional plot device against you. Yes, full life revives people. 9 times! 9! Wait. You can just reverse time?! Oh my god! There's no way! There's no way they actually included that! Come on. Come on, come on. Everybody needs a miracle. Don't. Are you time walking Enna Crow? You piece of. Oh! No! You can't be serious! Damn it! How is that fair? Is it 9 he's got? Do we have to go through all of his lives? My eyes, they're twitching. Just remembering it. It was actually amazing though. It was actually an amazing fight. Challenging, fulfilling fight to take on that really stretched my understanding of the game's combat system, stretched the box at which I had to think of how to use this turn-based combat system. I had to use every tip and trick and piece of magic to my full advantage. And you know what? I'm glad. Fights that ridiculous and demanding really show what a game is made of, and while I definitely have some criticisms, or should I say more improvements that I would have liked with the combat system, all in all I rate Maxima. Rate it as a somehow excellent DLC, though it has no earthly reason being so, as a lot of it is just forcing you to do content for content's sake. But if, like me, you find yourself enthralled with WoFF, in a guilty pleasure, that kind of guilty pleasure. But now, let's get to that secret ending, that juicy ending. So I had already been hoping to see the story return about the Diabolos King. So there was these really cool who's, and frankly just WoFF as a whole is crammed with so much detail and hidden lore, but also kind of just hints of lore, hints of deeper stories and happenings that really made the game feel rich in its history, in its backstory, in its origins. And a lot of that we heard about Enna Crow, and how when she first ascended to being the supreme aid world god Alexander, she had to battle many other gods to earn her status, and that does include other Alexanders, other Bahamuts, and it also included the Diabolos king. So one of the really cool things buried in the who's who for Enna Crow specifically was we found out her name was once an anagram. She was once a soldier named Roxanne who existed prior to the creation of the realms of fantasy, which is the realms that she takes hold of. And being so strong and confident in her powers is while she allows other gods to exist in them. One of those being the T-Girl, funnily enough. Or should I say the girl who forgot her name. So she was an out of franchise, can't remember which one it was now, but in terms of the story of WoFF, she's actually very powerful. She merged the power of fantasy and time, which allows us to go through those secret dungeons, and she has a lot of control over even Enna Crow's world. But because Enna Crow is so confident in her strength, again, she allows them to reside in her universe. But even how the girl who forgot her name got there has once again something to do with this Diabolos empire that came before. So the girl had to travel from the extraverse. One such pathway was opened after the Diabolos king lost control of his own power over fantasy. You might say something rather big happened in the world of the Diabolos, largely due to the actions of Aris, a young man whose form Alexander sometimes take. So this is what first set me onto talking about this Diabolos empire. They kept making hints, and it's what I think is great, is that he clearly, Chiba that is, had a plan for sequel long in advance. So something big happened in the world. Now this Aris, a young man whose form Alexander take, is exactly the same as Enna Crow, because according to WoFF lore, God's mind is vast and requires many faces. While life as Roxanne provided her much enjoyment, Alexander also frequently appears as a male, a fierce young man named Aris. Interesting detail, this young man was once Seraphi's master. And then it goes to say, so you see, outside of Grimoire, depending on which A-world you pay visit to, you might find that God has more than one form. And we do hear more about this story. He downed the Diabolos kingdom, which was trying to threaten the rest of the world. Basically, Diabolos' main goals in this universe is to put the world in a nightmarish-like state, because Diabolos, the way they get their powers, they feed off of nightmares. And we got a lot of this really cool lore, especially with Shulk. Shulk appeared, and it was actually her main center stage in the story, is she went and she confronted Diabolos. Now, this particular Diabolos, in this universe, as far as Diaboloses go, considering he's still really malevolent, he's actually about as good as they get, because Rain and Lan, who were once known as the Demon Dyad, tamed him, or tamed his malevolence, toned it down a notch. Because while some Diaboloses will be happy to just feed off of their victim's nightmare for a sort of a short while, dredging up some of their darkest and scariest inhibitions, but then ultimately leave them alone, some Diaboloses will feed off of its victim until their mind completely snaps and beyond. So he wasn't that bad. Now you've got a sense for what the Diabolos kingdom once was and what Diaboloses do in this story. That's why I really thought they might do a prequel story, that it would be so cool to see this character Aris, or to see Enna Crow in her younger days as this brave adventurer who took down a kingdom, but instead I was not expecting the secret ending to show it as Lan. That it would be through Lan we see this story. So let's dive in. Once again, the Rain and Lan at the end of the story were simply mirages. They went through the gate and there were plenty of hints about where did they go. Well, now we have the answer. So a portal opens up and out pops, boom, a Diabolos, tethered by a chain that gets pulled back into the portal, or tries to. Now what I think I saw from this chain is that it's tied to Lan, that the Diabolos was tormenting Lan, because when we go to the other side of the portal, we see there he is, freaking out. Lan is totally comatose with fear, shouting to himself, experiencing what looks like a nightmare. We then have this kind of really trippy scene that was quite vague and definitely just a juicy tease to get our brains working and make us want more.
Please help me. Sis.
But we hear on the other side that Tama, older Tamanau and Alwyn do battle against the Diabolos and they summon Odin. And the fight makes it seem like Odin strikes down Diabolos, but Diabolos says that that's not possible, and then he kind of disappears. Once that happened, we then pop back to Lan, who seems to snap out of the stupor he was in, saying he'd forgotten the most important thing.
Oh, man. I almost forgot the most important thing again.
And what I got from this scene, it snapped Lan out of the nightmare that the Diabolos had been putting him under. Now we actually know who Lan is at this point. Who's Who tells us that Lan is going by the name of the Wanderer, and he is drifting through countless A-worlds, searching for what seems like rain, but it specifically asks, could this really be Lan? How long did he wander before he became like this? But then also, what of Lan's left arm and his right? There are no answers here. I really like the tone they're going with this. The much darker twisty tone that it took, because what we see of this much darker Wanderer version of Lan is that he's actually wearing both gauntlets. He's wearing his sister's as well as his own, which begs the question, what has happened to Rain? The fact that he's searching for her, and during the nightmare just before, clearly the nightmare that Diabolos had been giving him was that Rain was completely lost. And then he continues on his way, proclaiming that he will find his sister soon. So there we go, my peasants. That is the meat, bone and delicious gristle of why the Secret Maxima ending got me so excited. And now just to round this video out on what I speculate the next part of the story could be, if it happens. Again, if Square prove it, which I really hope they do, because there was something so intrinsically Fabula Nova Crystallis-esque about World of Final Fantasy, like where the lore can go and the way that it explained about the different A-worlds, the power of fantasy and time and all this backstory is what I think is with Lan travelling from realm after realm. After him and Rain went through the Ultima portal, they would have gone to the universe of the X9 Knights. Now, the same power that the X9 Knights used to come over to the A-worlds, we kind of saw that that's the same way that the X9 Knights travelled across from the Extraverse where they came from, that it was using the same kind of dark portals that the Diabolos used. So that also must be what Lan used. And there's just so much awesome lore here, like even with the X9 Knights, I wasn't even aware of it, but the X9 Knights, there are 27 members. We've only ever seen 3. So that's another 24 X9 members that could be in a World of Final Fantasy sequel. Even just how that story played out. All of the X9 Knights, they're comprised of 3 things: humans, espers, and cyborgs. Now, the humans were actually all knights, honourable knights who lived during Roxanne's era. So even there, really cool, awesome story. But what I see with Lan is that if for whatever reason, if it is to save Rain or for some grander plot that we just haven't seen yet, if he is wandering through these countless realms to find her, or even to undo some fate, then he's trying to acquire the power of fantasy and or time, and that could be why he's hunting Diabolos, hence why we have this secret ending. And that would be huge, because it would basically be like a reincarnation of Aris. Ooh, and that would be huge, because if he acquires these powers, he's going to be essentially ascending to like a godlike status, which would be so huge. I mean, already the Farners, which is their family name, they're already hugely powerful. Their power over mirages is why Enocro needed to use them in the A-worlds. Combining that with whatever else it is that Lan is seeking to save his sister would make him even more powerful than Enocro himself. Again, it would also kind of be like the Demon Dyad, which was a name that they got simply because people were scared of them. It was a name born out of naivety. But if Lan is acquiring these powers, then he's going to be like the girl who forgot her name, which is a god as well as a demi-demon. So it kind of make the Demon Dyad more of a literal name this time. And combining that with his natural family power, whoo, this could go next level. And I even just think that it's got a really Kingdom Hearts vibe. Like this travelling through the Diabolos' dark fantasies, it's almost like the corridors of darkness in Kingdom Hearts. I mean, the whole thing is so Kingdom Hearts, and is why World of Final Fantasy could be that next franchise if Square just give it the proper backing, because although it only sold around about 250,000 copies back in the day, between the Vita and the PS4 and the Japanese and the English sales, it's probably done a lot more since then. That was kind of first week and month sales. But even that was just because they overshadowed his advertisement with a needless FF7 remake presentation where WoFF just got thrown clean under the bus. But if they kind of darken and matured the tone, which they really didn't represent that in the trailers, they made it look like it was going to be this just Final Fantasy chibi lope with none of the grit and weight that it really had. And again, that's so similar to Kingdom Hearts. It's very cutesy on the initial aesthetic, but actually its story is very complex and really cool. And where they could take it, and I hope they do, really use any game that they wanted. Anything from the extraverse. I mean, we already saw that they brought Sora into World of Final Fantasy. There was an even explanation as to how he was there. Again, we've got Sigma Harmonics. I just remembered it for the girl. I just think it would be cool if Square Enix threw the gloves off, gave the approval, and allowed other Square Enix titles to get used. Even to the point where, even if they wanted to keep it World of Final Fantasy, Lan could travel now with these powers to where Cloud and Squall and Tifa, to all these Final Fantasy universes, because in WoFF it's Enacro who brought them to here. Imagine we now flip it round. We get to go from here over to there, and that could hold a treasure trove of potential. Even more than what's already in there. Again, so many mysteries, so many laws, dreams, powers, fantasies, even illusions. Like back in the day, the whole Yawain and Carbuncle, the masked woman who we weren't sure about. Even that, Carbuncle is basically a god. It was actually the Carbuncle who was controlling the masked woman. It wasn't the other way around. No, the whole thing with Tama being one of the most powerful in the Final Fantasy universe. Like, Tama is crazy strong, but we never really saw that side. We really didn't see the nature of Enacro. Yet they went into such depth to try to connect this to the whole universe and give a logical explanation that it would just be a shame if they don't then lean into it. When you start throwing in illusions and time and fantasy, there were even some who's where it spoke about Roxanne and Aris. And it kind of made it sound like there were two different people, even though both Enacro. They could even flip that up. If Lan does travel back in time and it turns out that he actually is Aris, and the history books just recorded it wrong. Just like how in World of Final Fantasy there was the Crimson Prophecy, I think it was, and the Blue Prophecy. Azure, I think it was, and one of them turned out to be false. It could even be the case that Lan is Aris. I don't know, I'm just speculating. I just hope that Square can see the potential, and maybe they might, because they're looking to lean into things like the Switch so much more heavily, which Square themselves said that would give such a better chance for mid-range games to come into fruition. And I just love mid-range games for reasons like this, because where AAA games can only go so far in how much lore and story in detail that they can present before they confine the rest into obscurity or data logs, games like World of Final Fantasy, modest and as a result very malleable in how much you can add and explain and flesh out. I just feel like this is the kind of journey that really embodies a Final Fantasy. It just is. That is the fantasy element, the strong fantasy element in a Final Fantasy. And I just wish more fans could see that beyond just the cutesy chibi exterior, which I think this got passed off as. And I think it's just so much more than that. It has so much more than that. And if they went for this second one, again, it would definitely be darker, it would definitely be grittier, and if they handle it right and give it a better and proper platform that they kind of did but kind of didn't last time, if they give it the proper love, care and attention, I really think this could take off as a mini side franchise, that kind of runs concurrent alongside mainline Final Fantasies, just like what Type 0 was supposed to be. Most people forget that was, especially in Tabitha's eyes, something that they wanted to make a series out of. But Type next, and that probably won't happen, so who knows whether it will happen here. But there we go, guys, I am done. That is all of my hypes and thoughts. I could honestly go on all day. There is just so much lore. I have pages of it in front of me that I could just ramble through for the next half hour. But I won't. I shall refrain. But I definitely want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Who else loved this game? Who else is really intrigued by this lore? Do you want to see it happen? And is there anything else you think could be happening in Lan's journey that I may have missed in this vid? Keep it the rocking and the rolling. Until the next video, guys. Kupo!